Hey, this is Idea Coaches of Coach East Rome. Weighing in on the weight classes for UFC 157, I'm going to do a quick rundown of the main event, which is for the Women's Bantamweight Championship with the challenger Liz Camucci versus Ronda Rousey. I'm going to say this. I only talk about what I know, and I haven't seen Camucci fight enough for me to make a good evaluation of her skills. More power to her. Ronda Rousey's expectations is just so damn high right now with the UFC backing her up. I hope that this doesn't blow up her head or... No, I take that back. I hope this doesn't make our expectations of her too high. Something that they did with Gina Carano and 2011 with John Jones. As of this moment in February 2013, women's MMA needs Ronda Rousey more than Ronda Rousey needs women's MMA. I hope that in the next 3 or 4 title defenses that she's going to be in the main title contention if she's not still the champion. This is actually one of the few times I'd actually recommend that the UFC do a Ultimate Fighter and having women be the contestants and thus making a number one contender through that. So we get to know that these other challengers coming up for Ronda Rousey's current Bantamweight Championship. Okay, guys, let's get into the main fight I want to talk about, and that's the co-main event. In the matchup that should determine the number one contender for the light heavyweight belt currently worn by John Bones Jones, Lyoto Machida will be faced off against Dan Henderson. A couple of little side notes have changed since the original plan for UFC 151. First, Dana White's views on testosterone replacement therapy, a substance that Dan Henderson has been taking for a few years now, admittedly, have changed in a very negative sense. Also, this is a 3-round fight. It's technically not the main event, but it is the main event for the men's division. There are a number of advantages that Lyoto has over Dan Henderson. Lyoto's defensive movement should lead him to victory at UFC 157. His defensive angling is excellent, and although he does tend to keep his hands low, the posture that he has gives wrestlers a very difficult time. But the problem lies with Dan Henderson's power right hand. Henderson has a lot of confidence in his power, and he has every right to. It has done more damage now than ever before. The comeback win over Feijiao and Strikeforce, wins over Babalu, Bigsby, Fedor, Kinda, have left them victim to the power of the right hand. He has become more of a one-dimensional fighter in the process, it seems. Imagine Quentin Rampage Jackson done correctly. However, his hiccups in the UFC have come by his overconfidence in his power. Slugging out with Rampage led him to Henderson being put on his back. And deciding to stand up with Anderson Silva, although he was winning by points in the first round, Dan did kneel damage to the Spider and ended up costing him very greatly in the second. Machida's sumo and judo backgrounds make it hard for any wrestling fighters to clinch with him for any extended amount of time. Jones was the exception, but physically, Jones is an exception. Shogun made the mistake of getting too wild too soon with Hendo. If anyone's ever seen Lyoto fight, few would believe that the Dragon would make the same mistake. Chuck Liddell, Michael Page, Katsunori Kikuno, and Lyoto all have that karate tendency to leave the hands low, like I said before. GSP really being the only exception to a guy with a karate background that doesn't do that. That said, I don't see the H-bomb landing in this bout. The speed, defensive angles, and Lyoto's distancing would leave Dan Henderson waiting just a little bit longer for that potential title shot. Side note, I still can't believe that Robbie Lawler is still on main cards and pay-per-views. God bless him and more power to him. But I was just very surprised that he's going to be in the main card of UFC 157. I see Josh Koscheck taking that. Thanks for the support for my history of Japanese MMA Part 1 and 2. And Part 3 of that series will be done later on this week. Guys, take care.